60 Cup Series wins, 3 Daytona 500 trophies, a co-owned team reshaping NASCAR's future. And yet, the most important victories in Denny Hamlin's life never happened on a racetrack. What you're about to hear isn't just a story about a Hall of Fame caliber driver. It's about a father who went broke chasing his son's dream, a woman who stood in victory lane before anyone knew Hamlin's name, and a championship that carried the weight of a dying man's final wish. This is the Denny Hamlin story that NASCAR doesn't put on a highlight reel. Let's set the table fast. Denny Hamlin has been racing in NASCAR's top level for nearly 2 decades. He drives for Gibbs Racing, co-owns 23X Racing alongside Michael Jordan, and sits comfortably among the greatest drivers in the modern era of the sport. His personal life, just as layered. His partner Jordan Fish has been by his side since 2007. They met when she was a dancer for the Charlotte Bobcats. 17 years later, they got engaged on New Year's Day 2024. Together, they have 3 children, 2 daughters, Taylor James, born 2013, and Molly Gold, born 2017, and a son, Jamison Drew Hamlin, born in June 2025. Just days after that birth, Hamlin climbed back in his car and won a Cup Series race. That's the kind of man we're talking about. And behind all of it, a mother and a father who sacrificed everything so that their son could chase 200 miles per hour. Here's what most casual fans miss about Denny Hamlin. When you look at the record books, the wins, the near championships, the longevity, it's easy to file him under elite driver, decorated career. But the foundation of everything Hamlin has built was poured long before NASCAR ever handed him a sponsor check. His parents, Dennis and Mary Lou Hamlin, funded his rise through karting and short track racing at a real personal cost. We're not talking about showing up on weekends with folding chairs and a cooler. We're talking about financial debt, serious sacrifice, the kind of commitment that most families simply aren't willing or able to make. Hamlin has spoken about this repeatedly throughout his career, and the weight of that gratitude has never faded. When you hear him talk about his parents, it doesn't sound like rehearsed humility. It sounds like a man who genuinely understands that his career was a team effort long before he ever had a pit crew. That context matters because it reframes how we interpret Hamlin's relentless competitive drive. This isn't just a guy who wants trophies. This is a man who feels a responsibility to his family, to his kids watching from the infield, to a father who poured everything into a dream. And the 2025 championship push made that responsibility painfully, beautifully real. Hamlin entered that season with one specific motivation he made public. He wanted to win a Cup Series title, the one major achievement that had escaped him across a career full of milestones, while his father was still alive to see it. He said it plainly before the championship race. He knew time was short, he knew his father's health was declining, and he carried that into every single lap. Dennis Hamlin passed away that year. The championship remains the one thing Denny Hamlin has not yet claimed, and now that pursuit carries a grief that no race strategy can account for. Let's think about what this actually means for Hamlin's career and legacy. There's a version of Denny Hamlin that gets overlooked in the championship conversation. He's one of the winningest active drivers in NASCAR history. 3 Daytona 500s, a race that breaks legends. He's won it 3 times. He helped build a second team from scratch. He's been competitive at 40+ years old in a sport that grinds drivers down physically and mentally, and yet the championship has slipped away. Not because of a lack of talent. The man has the talent, not because of a weak organization. Gibbs Racing is one of the most elite operations in the sport. It's been timing, controversial finishes, strategy calls, racing luck, the unpredictable nature of a playoff format that rewards peaks over consistency. But here's the deeper layer, the psychological weight Hamlin has been carrying. He's been racing with urgency for reasons that go beyond standings. His engagement to Jordan Fish after 17 years together wasn't just a personal announcement. It was a signal of a man organizing his life with intention, a new son born mid-season while he's still competing at a championship level. His father's declining health, creating a deadline no point system can manufacture. That kind of emotional weight can break some competitors. For Hamlin, it appears to have sharpened him. Is that sustainable long term? That's the real question. Peak performance under grief is real. Athletes do it. But grief also has a delayed cost. The adrenaline of urgency eventually gives way to the reality of loss. What happens to Denny Hamlin's competitive fire now that the man he was racing for is gone? That's a question no analyst has a clean answer to because it's a human question, not a racing question. NASCAR fans have a complicated relationship with Denny Hamlin. He has polarizing tendencies on the track. He's willing to race hard, willing to push the line, and he doesn't apologize for it. That earns him respect from some corners and friction from others. But this storyline, the family story, the father, the championship chase, cuts through the rivalry noise completely. When Hamlin spoke publicly about wanting his father to witness a title, it landed differently than typical pre-race bulletin board material. It felt unguarded, specific, true. The media has largely treated it with the gravity it deserves. This isn't a manufactured storyline, it's the real fabric of a man's life playing out in public. And fans who've watched Hamlin for years, who've seen Jordan Fish in Victory Lane watch his daughters grow up in race photos, followed his journey as a team owner, they understand that what's happening with Hamlin right now is bigger than any single race result. Two roads forward for Denny Hamlin. Best case, grief becomes fuel. Hamlin, now free from the pressure of racing against his father's declining health, channels the loss into one final dominant championship run. He wins the Cup Series title he's been chasing his entire career, dedicates it to his father, and retires on his own terms. Jordan Fish is in Victory Lane. His kids are there. It becomes one of the great closure stories in NASCAR history. Worst case, the emotional cost catches up. The urgency that kept Hamlin sharp fades without the driving force behind it. His age, the competitive landscape, and the emotional toll of a grieving season combine to make a championship run just out of reach. Again, he finishes his career as one of the greatest drivers to never win a title, a legacy that is impressive by any measure, but permanently marked by what almost happened. Neither road erases what Hamlin has built, but only one of them gives this story the ending it deserves. Here's the question worth asking after everything we just covered. Does Denny Hamlin still have a Cup Series championship in him? And does it mean more now, or does the loss of his father change what winning it would even feel like? That's not a stats question. That's a soul question. Drop your answer below. I want to know where you stand. Best storytelling finish in NASCAR history waiting to happen, or a career legacy that's already complete without the title. And if you want more stories like this, the ones behind the helmet, not just the race results, make sure you're subscribed, because SportsWire USA covers the sport the way it deserves to be covered.